fell one time, then I fell again. I fell a third time, can't get away from the sin. I keep falling, then I come back to you, crawling, asking forgive me now, I'm ballin', knowing that I let you down, appalling. I don't wanna jeopardize my calling. When I hear your voice no more, I'm halting. I just wanna live in the world you're revolving. I am so imperfect, I'm getting involved in these flesh-tied friends, the blind consulting, pulling me away from the world and revolting. Asking for forgiveness is probably insulting, but you keep taking me back and you're vaulting. Give me chances. You keep giving me chances. You give me chances. You just keep giving me chances. King. Royalty, stand up, brand up, fam up, hand out, no way, hands up, know what, name that, it's mine, claim that, it's time, message, we shine, above all, the decline, the darkness cannot last, the shadow of my past, before I gain knowledge of heritage, I have the bloodline that I share, most powerful out here, the mover of mountains is who I am touting, the richest among us is who I'm the son of, from sundown to sun up, that's how I the come up, position is just mine, the favor in due time, can't have it, man, you lying, the powerless, you trying, enemy beneath me, there's nothing to teach me, the people receive me, cause my God complete me, and my God does keep me, and my God they free me, and my God redeem me, and my God relieve me, I'm king in the million, crown me, I am winning my position, God's giving, God's in it, God's surely king. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Elevation Podcast. My name is Shawn, Riff-Raff, and we are here another day having conversations with people from all corners of the world, talking about things that really affect us all, and you know, understanding that we all have similarities, and even when we're different, we all have things in common that make us commonly just human. And that's what we talk about here. We always have these conversations, and I get to find people that I find interesting and that have a story and are able to just connect with us on another level. Today, I have a special guest with me. Her name is Carey Portell. Is that am I pronouncing your name right, Portell?
Actually, you are. You're probably the only one.
You have such an incredible story, and a just a story of just conquering and coming back. But I really want to hear from you first before I start asking questions, because most of the people that watch the Elevation Podcast may not know who you are, and so I want you to get an opportunity just to tell your story, tell me who you are, where you come from, all of that stuff, so we can just sort of understand like what are we dealing with here before we ask the hard questions.
All right. So my name is Carey Portell. I live in mid-Missouri, probably about an hour and a half west of St. Louis. That's probably the closest city that anybody would know in Missouri. And I am just a regular person who had a really, really big tragedy happen that has caused me to be disabled and has kind of thrown me into the public speaking world, something that I never, ever in my entire lifetime thought would be a choice of mine. 10 years ago, I was hit by a drunk driver along with two of our children. That was a 4-vehicle car crash, and it was fatal. The impaired driver passed away on impact, and everybody else was pretty much okay except me and our two girls. Our two girls were able to recover in about 6 weeks. They had moderate injuries, but myself, I took the brunt of it, and it's been a challenge every day since.
Wow. When you say it's been a challenge, I know that's it's probably an understatement.
Yeah.
But what was your recovery time, and tell me about that challenge? Like what when you say it's been a challenge, what does that really mean? Like
I guess I do kind of downplay it a little bit, but my full recovery from when my surgeon said, Carrie, this this is it. This is all we can do for now, was 4 years long. So
Wow.
my goal was to heal and to be able to walk again. And my lower legs just had so much damage that they could not withstand my weight. So I was in a wheelchair for about 18 months before I was really able to walk here and there. I mean, not very. I was always having so many surgeries that it was constantly putting me back down. But it took about 4 years for me to be able to walk without any kind of support. And that, I mean, surgeries and physical therapy, that was my life for 4 years.
Wow. What was the process of that? Like, I know that obviously you came out to be who you are through that process. What was the process of that like though? But as you were recovering, what was the emotional or mental process of that like?
I think it was the worst and best experience of my life. It was the most difficult thing that I could probably never imagine, because I don't think that my mind could ever comprehend exactly what I would be going through.
Sure.
I feel like the mental and emotional was just as hard as the physical, maybe
Yeah.
even more so,
Yeah.
because I just didn't know what to do with everything that was running around in my mind and my chest. And there was so many things that I had to deal with. And one was survivor's guilt. Even though I didn't do anything wrong, a man had
Right.
lost his life and I didn't. So I was struggling with that and
Yeah.
what then was my purpose here. And mentally, I was always asking, am I going to be okay? And I really didn't know what that meant. Like, did it mean,
Mm-hmm.
am I going to be okay? Am I going to be able to walk again? Is my heart ever going to heal from this? It was a crazy process and it was very unsettling. Like I just always felt unsettled.
Mm. That's that's super important to hear, because there are a lot of people who get in car accidents and never emotionally, even if they physically recover. There are a lot of people that get in car accidents and just never sort of emotionally recover to the point. Did you recover to the point where you're able to comfortably drive?
Yeah. Now I think it wasn't as hard for me to drive because it took so long for me to be able to drive.
Yeah, sure.
And, I had to ride with other people. And, I had so many doctor's appointments that kind of got me okay with it. And then I started very slow with driving, just very short drives, like maybe 10 minutes, take my kids to their ball games or something like that. Now,
Sure.
that was always during the day, but I knew the time was going to come where I was going to have to drive at night, and it was dark whenever our car crash happened. So I did make sure I was kind of prepared for that. I could tell that my body was having a little bit of a reaction. I was very hot, and I always seem very calm on the outside, even if I'm going crazy on the inside. That's just how I am.
Sounds like me.
And yeah, yeah. So that very first time that I drove in at night, luckily I was dropping someone else off and I could stop at their house and like catch my breath for a little bit and say, okay, Carrie, you made it. You did okay. This is going to be all right. But it was an event for me for sure.
I imagine. So through your process, how did you get to where you are? Like, how did you come out of that and get into public speaking? Like, what was I guess the crossroads that brought you like, hey, maybe I'll speak to other people. Like, how did that
Yeah.
happen?
It was, everybody can tell you I was one of the shyest adults there was. Public speaking is something, of course, I had avoided. And it was this feeling like, because I kept always asking, what am I supposed to do after all this? I mean, 4 years is a long time to be in, chaos. And it just kept coming to me that you're supposed to do something with what you've learned from
Absolutely.
going through all this. And
Yeah.
it just kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And I had so many people in my community saying, Carrie, most people don't get to see everything that happens after the crash. They're thinking you should be recovered and ready to go again in, a few weeks. And here it was
Right.
4 years.
Right.
And so with their kind of pushing me as well, and with me feeling how strong this purpose was, I went ahead and gave in and started doing it a little bit here and there just to get my toes wet. But now I'm full force.
Right. What what type of audience do you speak to? Like you know, because I imagine so you know I imagine that the typical audience, and I could be wrong, so but just from where I'm from, imagine a typical audience would be sitting down with some high school students and or talking about the just the consequences of drinking and driving, or
Yeah.
but of course that's just me.
Yeah.
What kind of audience
That's
do you?
exactly where I started,
Oh, really?
was teens, because that seemed appropriate for my first step. So
Yeah.
my first audience is very much about the consequences of driving distracted. And that's kind of like the first part of my presentation. And the second half is, regardless of whatever challenge you're going through, you can overcome it. And then I kind of go through the, I guess, process of what I did to overcome
Sure.
it. But the distracted driving is probably my largest audience. I speak to teens. I speak to the adult, like SATAP and that kind of stuff. I don't know if other states call it SATAP or if they call it something else. But I definitely have a big faith based, because God was a very big part of my recovery. And
Sure.
I live in rural Missouri, and we own a cattle farm. And I started speaking to cattle farmers, or basically any type of farmer, of how to use your farming to recover physically, mentally, emotionally, all of that. So I talked to them also about working with disabilities. So those are my biggest ones, my three biggest ones. I feel like I can probably go anywhere with having this type of challenge and
Sure.
overcoming it. So I'm
Sure.
trying to figure out how to work that maybe into, a business conference, or, some kind of women's conference, abuse, that kind of thing. I feel I can go anywhere. I just don't know where to go next.
Right. When you talk about your, I think it's important if you talk about when you talk about your relationship with God bringing you through. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know that people that listen to this, they're gonna want to hear
Yeah.
that. They
It's my
definitely want to.
favorite part. It's my absolute favorite part. I was in our living room in a hospital bed for, I think, 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
And I had so many conversations with God at that point, because there was nothing else for me to do. I mean, I literally just had to lay there and try to get my body to heal so that I could eventually go to the next step of, trying to roll myself around in a wheelchair and then start physical therapy. So it is, in that aspect, it has been the best experience for me, because
Yeah.
I thought I had a good relationship with God before this happened.
Right.
And I learned that, man, I was just on the tip of the iceberg. Like,
Wow.
it threw me so far into a relationship with him that I talked to him almost like I talk to my husband. Like, that's how
Right.
close we are. And,
Right.
he loves my banter. I feel like he probably rolls his eyes whenever I question him, like, are you sure? Is this, what you're wanting me to do? But then he snickers because he knows he's always going to win, type thing.
Right.
So yeah, we have a very humorous, deep relationship. So, and I enjoy that so much.
But how important before your accident, because knowing how important your relationship with God after your accident, how did God work into your life prior to your accident? Like, yeah, how was your relationship with God before the tragedy?
I feel like now, feeling how it is now, I was a bit superficial. I,
Sure.
I didn't give it the time that I should have. And part of that was my lifestyle. We have 4 kids who are very close in age. we have a cattle farm, and life was so incredibly busy that I just didn't talk to him as much as I needed to. And there were
Sure.
so many moments that I would talk to him and they were very fleeting, but I just didn't sit in it. I just didn't
Hmm.
sit in the conversation and let it envelop me like I do now. And now it's just, God, it's such a like warm, peaceful feeling that I wonder how I ever was able to live without it. I hope that other people can get that at some point in their life without having to go through what I went through.
Sure.
But a lot of times it literally takes, being hit upside the head with something so hard that it makes you pay attention. And that's what it took for me to slow down and pay attention to him.
That's awesome. For other people going through, you know, tragedies of one sort or another, you know, tragedies have a way of you could either let them engulf you and you be completely depressed by them, or you can do what you did and, you know, make a story and make, you know, success out of them. How what is some advice you could give someone that could take the hand in which they're dealt and create the life in which, you know, we see in front of us when we're looking at you?
The first thing that I had to do was accept that there was nothing that I could do to change what happened.
Sure.
It was out of my control. And I think a lot of people struggle with what if, and you can't do that because there is no what if. It happened,
Right.
it's landed in your lap. Now it's your choice to say, okay, how am I going to handle this?
Sure.
So, a huge part of what helped me was having a support system that was not going to coddle me. I didn't need all this sympathy because sympathy allows you to drown where you are, it doesn't pull you out.
Sure.
So, fortunately, I have a husband who he can give me those moments in time that I need to just, I guess, release and be aggravated and cry and, be down for a day. And then the next day, he's like, okay, you've got to get on with this. He's like, sitting down in that puddle that you're in is not going to do anyone any good, especially you, because you have things to do and you want to heal. You've got 4 kids. And that helped me a lot whenever I was really down and wondering, gosh, am I ever going to like have any of this pain kind of relieve itself? And if you don't have that person, you've got to be that person for yourself. You've got to be your own best motivator. You've got to be your own best coach. And I had to take those liberties to when my husband wasn't here because I couldn't call him, all day while he was at work. I had to do things myself. So I would find quotes and I would recite them over and over again. I would write in a journal and just try to get all of that unsettled feeling out of me where it wasn't going to hurt anyone else.
Yeah.
And that was a big, big part of my recovery was just using that support. And just every day when I woke up, I mean, the very first thing I would say to myself is, okay, Carrie, how is today going to go? And it sounds so weird, I know, to some people to actually say, I'm going to say this out loud. But when you're in that space, like you have to say it out loud. And that's what I
Yeah.
would just do every day. And I had to make a decision at that point.
Well, how has this affected motherhood? So you said you have 4 kids. Only, I guess, 2 of them were in the car. So when you
Yeah,
said two, I just imagined you only had two, but actually there are four.
there's 4.
How is this your life and your recovery and, you know, just your new normal? How has that affected motherhood?
It's made me want to smother my kids, and I've had to draw back a little bit, because you can't smother them too much. And especially as they get in those teen years, they're like wanting their
Yeah.
independence and, okay, mom, I get it. You love me. But there are things like my kids know whenever they leave the house, like we never leave mad ever because we have no idea what's going to happen in the
Sure.
next 8 minutes, which is what happened, in our situation. We always hug and say, I love you. It has made me stop in the moment more. And
Mhm.
just there's so many times that I've caught myself where I am sitting there watching them, and this feeling comes over to me, and I get to sit here and watch them, regardless of how boring the activity may be, or
Sure.
not relevant to where we're at now. It's I get to, and it just kind of brought that awareness really close to heart. So I take much more time and satisfaction in my children.
Mm. That's awesome. I so you mentioned a couple of times that you're a cattle farmer, which is cool because even though I live in DC, so no farms here.
Don't get a lot of cattle farmers.
No,
Yeah.
well, actually, I meet a ton of farmers because my one of my audiovisual contracts with my other company is with the USDA, and
Oh yeah.
so yeah, I'm able, like, we just got an opportunity to on a transition where Secretary Perdue just transitioned out for a new Secretary of Agriculture to come in. We were just there with him, and we got an opportunity. So I've met tons of farmers around the country just just doing some technology things for USDA. What is farming? What's your farming life like now after? So have you been in that? Were you in that business before the accident?
Yeah, we were in the business. We knew pretty quickly though that we had to sell all of our livestock because it was such a financially heavy car crash that
Mm-hmm.
that was the first. We're like, we have things to sell, so let's just start selling stuff.
Sure.
So it was really interesting. I had so much physical therapy that, and my physical therapist and I got really close, that he said, Carrie, you don't have to come in here 3 times a week anymore. You have a farm, and I can give you exercises to do on your farm that will help with your physical healing. So that's how it kind of started out of me doing very light activities on the farm just to get some movement back,
Sure.
because joints weren't moving like they used to. And then that feeling of accomplishment is something that apparently I have to have in my life.
Mm.
And for me to look back and see even the most trivial task, I looked back and I said, man, I did that. It's been
Yeah.
2 years since I've been able to do anything. And then it just kept going. And I started to have a lot of difficulty because my mind still wanted to do things as if I had my previous body.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did have to get some help with that through some organizations that taught me, certain things to do, and certain equipment that I was going to have to use being disabled. And now that is pretty much what I do, splitting my time between speaking and cattle farming, because I have tried so many times to work a normal job, and my pain level just will not allow me to do anything for like an extended period of time. Whereas if I'm home and I'm farming, I can do it as I wish. If I'm
Yeah.
feeling
Sure.
really great in the morning, do it then. Probably
Sure.
not going to feel great in the afternoon type thing. So, and
Mm.
I've had so many spiritual moments when I'm out on the farm and where I
Yeah.
just stop and stare at like the beauty of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been the best blessing that I could ever have coming from such a tragedy.
Mm. That definitely encouraging. I know that'll be encouraging for people, just that in similar scenarios, because I know of a lot of people really who have been touched in from in car accidents and just need help. There are tons of physical therapists out here. There's tons of physical therapists that can help you get everything moving again and that type of thing. But getting back to where you were mentally, or getting back to where you should be, not maybe not where you were, where you should be mentally. I had a friend several years ago that got into a motorcycle accident, and was paralyzed from the lower waist down. And she talked to me a lot about dealing with she called them phantom pains, or like she's, like she can't use her legs anymore, but she still thinks she can. So,
It's
like
the
she'll,
nerve damage.
yeah. And
I've
so,
had,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So so I know there are a ton of people that deal with stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
it definitely it messes with your mind,
yeah,
and you sometimes find yourself talking to yourself in a negative way, and
sure,
you can be your own worst motivator. So you have to make a conscious choice to change your wording to yourself. And a lot of
sure,
people don't think about how they talk to themselves. It's only about, how other people talk to them. And it's a huge process, working process, I guess, to really try to overcome that.
sure. Let me ask you this, because I know your time is limited. So I wanna ask you a question I always ask every guest that comes on here, and it's always interesting to hear everybody's answer to this. I when you think about when you think about the world, if you were able to make a change, one change, in the world, if you could change, I don't know, the way people saw this, or I don't know, there are lots of different answers that come. If you could, if you had the grace of God said, I'm gonna allow you to change one thing about the world, what would it be?
I feel like for me, it would be how people perceive their own value.
Mm,
I think most people struggle with this. We downplay how much we are worth to this world and what we can offer. And I think that's a huge struggle for most people, that they end up kind of pushing it to the side because it's too hard to work through.
sure, that's awesome. Um, like I said, I know you have limited time. I really appreciate you coming, because I think that the things that you have to say, a lot of are were generally a lot of people need to hear. If someone wants to get in contact with you, how would they do so? Like, how do we connect with you?
My website is probably the best. It's just carrieportell.com. And I am pretty much on every social media. YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram are my biggest. It's just
Right.
Carrie Portell. And then Instagram is CP_STY. And that's because my blog is called Stronger Than Yesterday.
Oh wow, that's super cool. I'm trying to get your website there. There we go. Awesome. Thank you very much. And I definitely think that you have something that people really need to hear, a story that you should definitely, I hope you keep telling it. You have a book coming out soon, right?
I do, yes. Finally, after 10 years, I have finished this book, and it is at the publisher now, getting edited and worked on. And our launch date is going to be April 9th.
Oh, sounds awesome. What's the name of it?
We're in between titles. We're split between The Broken Road or Facing Life Head On. So we're trying to decide that by the end of next week, so we can put that on the cover.
Sounds awesome. Kerry, I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate everything that you're doing, that everything you're teaching from the things that you have learned. I hope that you continue, and thank you so much.
Shawn, I had a great time. Thank you.
This is the Elevation Podcast. My name is Shawn Riff-Raff. We'll see you next Tuesday, 7:30. Peace out.